The McDonald's crowd froze when a gang of young men cornered a nurse, their laughter sharp, their voices filling the room. Her tray rattled in her trembling hands. Then the doors swung open. Boots struck tile in steady rhythm, and leather vests turned the noise into silence. Before we start this story, tell us, where in the world are you watching this from? And if you enjoy our stories, please like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss another story of human and bikers' kindness. Danica Lowell had just finished a double shift at Oak Ridge General Hospital. Her scrubs were wrinkled, hair pulled into a weary knot, and her feet ached from endless rounds. Nursing wasn't just her job, it was survival. Her father's medical bills piled high, her younger brother still in school. Every dollar mattered. Stopping at McDonald's on her way home was ritual. A hot burger, fries, and 5 minutes of peace before the bus ride back to their small apartment. She carried her tray carefully, offering the cashier a tired but polite smile. Inside, families chattered, children spilled soda, and the smell of fries clung to everything. Danica slid into a booth, exhaling slowly. For a moment, the weight of responsibility eased. But peace never lasted long. Across the room, a group of young men in hoodies sprawled across several tables, laughing too loudly, throwing ketchup packets like toys. Their eyes locked on Danica, alone, exhausted, vulnerable. Her quiet meal was about to become a test of dignity. The gang rose noisily, scraping chairs across linoleum, swaggering toward Danica's booth. She kept her eyes down, unwrapping her burger, praying they'd pass. They didn't. One leaned close, the smell of alcohol clinging to his jacket. "What's a nurse doing here alone? Saving lives doesn't buy steak, huh?" His buddies laughed. Another reached for her fries. "She can share. Nurses are generous, right?" Danica's hand trembled as she pulled the tray closer. "Please. Just leave me alone." The leader, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, smirked. "Ah, don't be shy. We're just having fun." He slid into the booth uninvited, blocking her exit. Around the room, customers glanced away. A mother tugged her kids closer. The manager peeked from behind the counter, then disappeared. Danica's chest tightened. She'd spent all day standing up for patients. Now, no one would stand up for her. Then, faintly, she heard it, the deep, rolling rumble of engines outside. At first it blended with traffic, but the sound grew louder, heavier, synchronized. Heads turned toward the glass as headlights flooded the lot. Engines cut, but the silence they left was charged. The doors swung open, and 10 men walked in, leather vests patched red and white, Hell's Angels. They didn't shout. They didn't posture. They simply walked, boots striking tile in steady rhythm, filling booths near Danica. Their silence carried more weight than any gang's laughter. The scarred leader scoffed, forcing bravado. "What, biker reunion night?" His voice cracked slightly. One angel sat at the next table, motioning for coffee. His voice was calm. "Ma'am, you okay?" Danica's throat tightened. I'm fine." The angel's gaze flicked to the gang. "Then you finish your meal in peace. That's the rule." The bullies faltered. No fists had been raised, but the balance of the room had shifted. For the first time that night, Danica felt seen. The leader leaned back, trying to laugh it off. "What, you think you own this place?" Bear, the broad-shouldered angel who'd spoken, set his cup down. "Nobody owns it. But no one harasses a nurse on our watch." Danica blinked, stunned. Respect wasn't something she heard often outside hospital walls. One of the gang shoved his chair back. We're not scared of bikers. Another angel rose slowly, towering over him. His vest read, "Tank." His voice rumbled like distant thunder. Then act like men. Sit. Eat. Leave her alone. The room stilled. Customers held their breath. The gang's laughter sputtered out, their noise collapsing against the wall of silence. Danica gripped her soda cup, pulse racing. Relief and disbelief collided in her chest. For once, she wasn't alone. But Bear's eyes narrowed. He'd seen too many men like this before. Pride bruised didn't fade, it came back louder. And he knew the night wasn't over. Danica tried to finish her meal, but her hands shook too badly. Bear leaned closer, his voice gentle. "Take your time. We're not going anywhere." She nodded, whispering, "Thank you." The angels sipped coffee, chatting quietly, their calm presence shielding her. Customers relaxed, conversations slowly resuming. But outside, engines that didn't belong to Harley's roared. A black car screeched into the lot, headlights cutting across the window. The gang leader smirked. "Told you we're not done." His friends straightened, puffing their chests, false courage rekindled by backup. Bear exhaled slowly, rising again. "Stay behind us," he told Danica. She slid deeper into the booth, clutching her bag. The doors burst open. More men stumbled in, louder, rowdier, filling the space with shouting. But the angels didn't flinch. They simply stood, boots planted, forming a wall between Danica and the chaos. The rehook had arrived, silence versus noise, dignity versus cruelty. The newcomers barked laughter, slamming chairs aside. "What's this? Story time with grandpas?" one jeered. Bear's expression didn't change. He spoke evenly, his voice cutting through the noise. "A nurse saves lives all day. Tonight, she eats in peace." The bullies sneered, but unease flickered in their eyes. Danica's chest swelled. For hours she had poured herself out for patients no one noticed. And now, strangers noticed her, defended her. One biker stepped forward, pulling $1 from his vest. He slapped it on the counter. "Coffee for everyone. On us." The gesture rippled like thunder. Angels followed suit, stacking bills until meals across the diner were covered. Customers clapped softly. A mother whispered, "Thank you," tears in her eyes. The gang leader cursed, his power slipping. Fearless noise had been drowned by loyalty's silence. Danica pressed a hand to her chest, whispering to herself, "I matter." For the first time all night, she believed it. Frustration burned in the gang leader's eyes. He slammed the table, voice rising. "You think you can embarrass us like this?" Bear leaned forward, calm as stone. "You embarrassed yourself the second you picked on her." The gang bristled, fists tightening. But outside, the low rumble of more engines grew. Headlights pierced the night, flooding the lot. Danica gasped. More angels arrived, their formation filling the windows. 30 riders now stood guard. The gang's bravado cracked. One muttered, "This ain't worth it." Bear's voice dropped lower, final. "You're done here. Walk out while you still can." The leader hesitated, then cursed under his breath. He motioned to his crew. Chairs scraped as they stormed out, muttering threats they no longer believed. The diner erupted in applause, louder this time. Danica's tears spilled freely. Tank whispered to her, "You're not small, sister. Don't ever forget that." Danica sat trembling, Mr. Buttons of her life, the badge on her scrub top, pressed close to her chest. For once, the symbol didn't feel like a burden. It felt like honor. Bear returned to her booth, his tone softer now. You're safe. Finish your meal. We'll stay until you leave. Danica's voice cracked. Why me? Why tonight? Bear's eyes met hers. Because dignity isn't optional. You deserved respect before we walked in. Tonight just proved it. Around them, families relaxed again, conversations shifting from fear to awe. Children peeked over booths at the riders, whispering, "Real angels." Danica wiped her eyes. For months she had carried the exhaustion of double shifts and endless bills. But now, in this fluorescent-lit McDonald's, she carried something else, proof she wasn't invisible. Bear lifted his coffee again, the silence around him louder than any threat. Outside, the gang's car screeched away, but inside, dignity had been restored. When Danica finally rose to leave, her knees wobbled. Bear stood instantly. "We'll walk you out." The angels flanked her, a convoy of leather and loyalty. Customers pressed hands over hearts as she passed. Some whispered thanks. Others simply watched, reverence in their eyes. Outside, the lot was quiet. The gang was gone. Harleys lined the curb, headlights glowing like guardians. Danica clutched her bag tighter. "I don't know how to thank you." Bear shook his head. "Don't. Just remember, you're never as alone as you think." For the first time in years, Danica smiled without forcing it. Engines roared to life, escorting her to the bus stop like armored knights. Commuters gawked, phones recording, but Danica held her head high. For one night, the nurse who gave everything had been given something back, respect. And she knew she'd carry it forever. By the next morning, Oakridge buzzed. Videos of the night flooded social media. "Hell's Angels guard nurse at McDonald's," captions read. Views skyrocketed. Danica's co-workers crowded her at the hospital. "That was you," one whispered, awe in her voice. Danica flushed. "I didn't ask for it." "No," another replied, "but you deserved it." The story spread further, drawing comments worldwide. Some doubted, others debated, but most cheered. Danica didn't care about the noise. What mattered was the silence of 30 riders who had turned a gang's cruelty into nothing. On her break, she sat outside the hospital, sunlight warming her tired face. For once, she didn't feel invisible in her scrubs. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." Engines in the distance answered faintly, or maybe it was her imagination. Either way, it filled her chest with peace. Life didn't magically ease. Bills still piled. Double shifts still drained her. But Danica carried herself differently. At the diner 1 week later, the manager approached sheepishly. "Sorry I didn't step in. I was scared." Danica smiled softly. "It's okay. Fear is real. But silence can be powerful, too." She slid into a booth, memories of that night rushing back. She swore she could still feel the strength of their presence in the air. Tom Jenkins, an elderly regular, leaned over. "You know, I've eaten here 40 years. Never seen the room so quiet. Never seen dignity defended so fiercely." Danica blushed. "I didn't deserve all that." Tom shook his head. "You deserve every ounce. You've been serving this town for years. It's about time someone served you." Her throat tightened. Maybe she had been carrying more than exhaustion all along. Maybe she had been carrying worth, and it just needed to be seen. Months passed. The story became legend in Oakridge. Parents told their kids, "Remember, angels don't always have wings." Danica worked on, still tired, but steadier. She spoke up more at staff meetings, even volunteered to mentor younger nurses. Each time fear crept in, she remembered the sound of boots, the silence of loyalty. One night, walking home from a late shift, headlights flared behind her. For a moment, fear spiked, until engines purred low, familiar. A pair of Harleys slowed, riders nodding as they passed, shadows fading into the night. Danica exhaled, comforted. They weren't here for her specifically. But they were here. Somewhere. Always. At home, she hung her scrubs neatly, smoothing the badge on her chest. For the first time, she saw it not as a burden, but as armor. The memory of that night had forged something stronger inside her, dignity unbreakable, defended not by fists, but by presence. One rainy afternoon, Danica sat by her mother's bedside. The older woman's health had declined, but her spirit still sparked. Her mother listened as Danica retold the story once more. And they just stood there? In silence? Danica nodded. And the whole room went quiet. Her mother smiled faintly. That's power. Not in noise, but in knowing when to stand. You should remember that, Em. You come from strong women. Now you've seen strong men stand too. Danica squeezed her mother's frail hand, tears welling. That night, Danica dreamed of Harleys rolling through Oak Ridge, headlights cutting through rain, not with menace but with purpose. She woke with a new fire in her chest. Strength wasn't something she borrowed from them. It was something they revealed was already hers. The following month, the hospital honored Danica at a staff meeting. Her supervisor presented a plaque, for courage and dedication, on and off the clock. Danica flushed red, murmuring, I didn't do anything. Her supervisor smiled. Sometimes courage is just surviving the storm. Sometimes it's letting others stand with you. Applause filled the room. Danica blinked back tears, clutching the plaque to her chest. That evening, she returned to McDonald's. The booths were ordinary again, filled with laughter and fries. But when she sat in her usual spot, a waitress whispered, That's her, the nurse. Danica smiled shyly, unwrapping her burger. She didn't crave recognition. What she carried now was far greater, proof that dignity mattered. Outside, the faint rumble of engines rolled by. She looked up, heart swelling. Not for headlines. Not for glory. But because they rode for people like her. Winter came. Danica bundled in scarves, trudging to late-night shifts. The cold bit deep, but inside she carried warmth. One snowy evening, as she left the hospital, she spotted a motorcycle parked under a streetlight. A leather vest draped across the seat, patch glinting faintly. She paused, heart catching. Bear leaned against the wall, cigar in hand. You all right? He asked. Danica nodded. I am now. He studied her a moment, then said, You stood tall that night, even when they crowded you. Don't forget that. She blinked. I didn't feel tall. Doesn't matter. You were. That's what counts. They shared a quiet moment, the snow muffling the world. Then Bear stubbed his cigar, mounted his bike, and roared away. Danica hugged her coat tighter. For the first time in years, she felt like she had armor no winter could pierce. As spring returned, so did whispers of the gang. Some said Vince, the scarred leader, had left town. Others claimed he'd been humbled, quieter now. Danica didn't know, and didn't care. What mattered was that fear no longer ruled her steps. At the diner one evening, she overheard children telling the story. And then 30 bikers came in, and the bad guys shut up. Their eyes sparkled with awe. Danica chuckled softly. Legends grew, but the core remained true. Silence had won. Melissa, a coworker, slid into the booth across from her. "You've changed, Em. Stronger." Danica smiled. "Maybe I just remembered who I was." Her friend nodded. "Sometimes it takes angels to remind us." Danica's gaze drifted to the window, imagining chrome and headlights. Gratitude filled her chest. Not for a single night, but for a promise she'd carry forever. She would never again believe her dignity could be taken. A year later, Danica attended a nursing conference in a nearby city. The hotel ballroom buzzed with chatter, professionals networking and swapping stories. When she stepped outside for air, engines thundered faintly down the street. Her chest tightened with recognition. Bear approached from the shadows, his beard streaked with gray. "Heard you're speaking tomorrow." Danica's eyes widened. "How do you?" He shrugged. "We notice things." Her throat tightened. "I still don't know why you helped me that night." Bear's gaze was steady. "Because no one deserves to feel small." "And nurses? You carry everyone else. Somebody's gotta carry you sometimes." Tears pricked her eyes. She whispered, "You did." He nodded once, then disappeared into the night, engines trailing like thunderclouds. Danica exhaled, shoulders squaring. Tomorrow, when she spoke to her peers, she'd tell them, "You are not invisible. You are worth standing for." The conference speech went viral online. Danica, voice steady, told her peers, "We fight for patients daily. But sometimes, we need others to fight for us." Applause erupted. Emails flooded her inbox. Nurses across the country thanked her for speaking what they had felt for years. Danica returned to Oak Ridge with new pride. The plaque from her hospital hung on her wall, but the real treasure was invisible, the strength to stand tall. At the diner, Tom raised his mug when she walked in. "Still our nurse," he said proudly. Danica smiled. "Always." She sat at her booth, unwrapping fries. The room felt brighter, safer. Not because the angels were present, but because their silence lived on in her memory. She carried it now. One autumn evening, Danica walked home under falling leaves. The city was quiet, golden light spilling across cracked sidewalks. She paused at a crosswalk, heart stirring with the memory of that night. The fear, the silence, the dignity restored. She whispered to herself, "No one makes me small." Engines roared faintly somewhere in the distance. She smiled. At home, she placed her scrubs neatly on the chair, smoothing the badge. She lit a candle for her father, whispering thanks. Life wasn't perfect. Bills remained. Shifts stretched long. But Danica carried armor invisible to most, the knowledge that she mattered. And that knowledge could never be stolen again. That night, Danica sat by her window, city lights blinking. She remembered the fear of being surrounded, the laughter of cruelty, the weight of silence that crushed it. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." No answer came. Just silence. But silence was enough. Her story would live on, not in headlines, but in the quiet courage of every nurse, every worker, every soul who wondered if they mattered. They did. Because one night, 30 writers reminded a nurse, and an entire room, that dignity is not a luxury. It is a right. Sometimes, justice doesn't roar. It simply stands in silence, unyielding. Danica's story proves that cruelty collapses when loyalty rises.